Hello, mathematicians. Happy Thursday. We only get to do one skill lesson this week because tomorrow is parent-teacher conferences, so you don't have classes. So let's do our best on this skill lesson because we only have one. We're going to give it our all. Okay, today we're going to be focusing on two skills. One will be review from last week, and the other one, which I'm about to introduce to you, is called finding the common denominator. And I'm going to teach you a little trick here just for Unit 2, Lesson 3. So here are the steps, and then we're going to flip to my dot camera to practice. So the first step, when you're looking at an expression with two fractions, you want to identify the smaller denominator in the expression. If you will direct your eyes to the bottom of the screen, I have 5/6 and 1/3. You can see my little Bitmoji noticing that 1/3 has the smaller denominator. So after I figure that out, my next step is to multiply by 1 in fraction form. And what I mean by that is that 1 in fraction form, you can see here I wrote which equals a number over a number. You can also think of it as the same number over a same number. In step 3, remember, when you multiply by 1 in your fraction form, be sure to multiply the numerators by the numerators and the denominators by the denominators. That's going to get us a new fraction. So you'll see here I took 1/3 down at the bottom of the screen. I multiplied it by 1, which I wrote as 2 over 2. Any number over itself equals 1. And that got me to convert 1/3 to 2/6. After I have my two fractions now with the same denominators, I can go ahead and solve my expression. And remember, we can multiply by 1, which is represented as a number over a number, because when you multiply by 1, that does not actually change the fraction or the expression. Remember, anything times 1 is itself. Let's flip to my dot cam and do some practice. So let's say I have the fractions 1/2 and 3/8. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not realize I was writing where you could not see. Okay, so I know I can't work with these because they don't have the same denominator. So first step, I need to identify which fraction is the smaller, which I am going to circle here, is this one. So then when I'm showing my work on my independent practice, I'm going to draw a separate spot. I'm going to draw my write my fraction again. And then I need to figure out what I can multiply by to get it to equal the bigger denominator. So my bigger denominator in this case is 8. So I can multiply by 1. But what fraction am I going to use to represent 1? Well, I know that 2 times 4 is 8. So I'm going to multiply by 1, which is 4 over 4. And then I get my new fraction of 4/8. And now I can do whatever expression I need to do, solve whatever expression I need to solve with this new fraction that has a common denominator in 3/8. So then I would go back and rewrite the problem again. Let's practice one more. Let's say I have 3/5 and let me rewrite that. We're going to start out with 1/25 and 4/5. Well, I can see here that my Smaller denominator is 5. I'm going to go ahead and circle that. And then I'm going to rewrite my fraction down here to convert it. 4/5. I know that, let's see, 5 times 5 is 25. So if I'm multiplying by 1, my fraction would be times 5/5. And then my new fraction is 20/25. So go ahead and pause the video here. And remember, you can go back and pause it earlier to practice these conversions with the fractions yourself to get a common denominator, which also represents same, which also means same denominator. All right, let's go ahead and flip back. Now, as I mentioned before, the step we are going to review is representing a remainder as a fraction. You've seen these notes before. They are posted in your Google Classroom. Remember, when you're dividing using tape diagrams, you always represent your remainder as a fraction, so we don't confuse it with a whole number. So I should not see answers that have R3, R5. It should always be R, and then the remainder is a fraction. So if you go ahead and look up in the top right, the numerator of your remainder is the number of shaded parts left outside of the groups that you have made. And then the denominator is the number of parts needed to make one group. So you would go back in your problem and look at your group and see how many you need. Let's look at 4/6 divided by 3/6. We know we can do this because the denominators are the same, so we can solve this expression. I fill out my tape diagram by separating it into 6 parts based on the denominator of the dividend, which is the first number normally in the problem. That is the number that you're trying to break down into groups. And then I know how many I shade in my tape diagram by looking at the numerator of that dividend. The divisor, which is the second fraction in the problem normally, it tells you how many groups, or what the size, it tells you the size of the groups that you're trying to break the dividend into is 3/6. So I go down here and I count 1, 2, 3. That's my first group. I realize that's all the groups I can make out of the shaded squares of 3/6. So I know I have one whole, and then I can see that I still have one square remaining, one shaded square remaining. So that becomes my numerator for my remainder, the parts left. And then for my denominator, it is the parts needed to make one group. So I go back and look at my group and realize that there are 3 parts in there. So the answer for that problem would be 1 and remainder 1/3. Another quick trick you can use is that the denominator of your remainder is the numerator of your divisor in your original problem. Let's take a look at one of the homework problems to review. Okay, evaluate the following expression using a model. 7/5 divided by 3/10. All right, let's check out my whiteboard. Okay, so the first thing I notice is that, my denominators are not the same. So I'm going to have to convert, and I'm going to practice the skill we worked on earlier in this lesson. I can see that my 5 is smaller than my 10, so I need to figure out what fraction I can multiply by to get that to equal 10. I know that 5 times 2 equals 10, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it up here. 7/5 times 1, which I'm going to represent as 2/2, is equal to 14/10. So let's write the new problem in a different color. here is my new problem. So I'm going to erase that arrow so it doesn't confuse you. My new problem is 14 tenths divided by 3 tenths equals question mark. And I know that I can now solve this expression because my denominators are common. They're the same. So first, the next thing I need to do is make my tape diagram. I'm going to draw this out nice and big. So when you're making the tape diagram, you just separate it into the denominator will tell you how many parts to separate it into. But the tricky thing could be when the numerator is more than the denominator. What you're going to do is count in groups of the denominator until you have enough parts to shade in, which the numerator tells you how many parts you need to shade in. So I'm going to start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That would be 10 parts, but I know that's not enough. So I have to count to another 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's make sure I have 20 parts here because I did 10, counted in groups of 10 twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, oops, 20. Okay, we're good to go. So now I need to shade in 14 of those tenths. I have 20 tenths right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, I'm done using my dividend right now. Now I need to see how many groups of 3 tenths I can make of the shaded squares. My divisor is telling me that. Let's count. 1, 2, 3. There's 1. 1, 2, 3. There's 2. 1, 2, 3. There's 3. 1, 2, 3. There's 4. 1, 2. Okay, so I know that I have a remainder for this problem. I'm going to scoot this up a little bit. Alrighty, I'm going to start with my whole number first in my answer, which I get from how many groups I can make. And I made 4 groups. So now let's figure out the remainder, which is going to be a fraction. The numerator is the number of shaded parts outside of the groups left over. That's 2. The denominator is how many parts in the group. So I can just look at one group. How many parts are in that group? 1, 2, 3. So there is my answer, 4 2/3. I can double check that. My denominator and my remainder should also be my numerator of my divisor. And that all checks out. All right, mathematicians, let's rock our one skill lesson this week. Go ahead and get started. Remember, you can pause this video, take notes, refer back to it. I also put notes in your skill lesson for today. And have a great rest of your Thursday.